Welcome back to another episode. I am Brittany.
I'm Liesl.
Today's video, as you can tell in the title below, we are going to be discussing breastfeeding. What a topic. It's probably going to be a little intense and heavy for us. I even have tissues on hand because let's be real, breastfeeding, there's so many emotions and so many, there's just so much tied to it that I had no idea that was even the case. So basically, this is not going to be a how-to. It's not even going to be so much of a sharing our journeys as it's just going to be a conversation. Like, we're just going to talk about breastfeeding, about maybe some of the things that we didn't expect, the things that we were expecting but were different, or just whatever it is. We're just going to see where the conversation takes us. We've had conversations about this, many times. She has a 2-year-old. I have a 6-month-old. So as soon as I had her, I was texting her and I was like, what about this? What about that? You know, but there's so much.
Yeah. We will share our journeys.
Yes.
But that is not, that's
goal.
not the focal of this conversation. Let's call it a conversation.
Yeah. We chat.
Yes, a chat. We just want to have a very, like she said, a very honest and real conversation because there isn't a lot of that, I feel like. At least when I was breastfeeding, I didn't see that.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like there's a lot of information out there and there's a lot of like bullets that people share.
A lot of hacks.
A lot of like, how to up your milk supply. And there's all these things, but on the other side of that, there's a lot of really real emotions. So we also wanted to do a little disclaimer. If this is triggering to you, or if you are in this season where breastfeeding is really hard and challenging, and you think, I can't watch this video, I can't watch another thing, it's okay to turn the video off. It's okay to be like, not today. Like, we understand. Sometimes it is too much, and you have to just time out, take a step back, swipe out of things, stop looking at that Instagram caption or whatever it is. Protect your peace. You can always come back to this later when you're in a different space. So, yes. Any more disclaimers before we jump in?
I think that's it. I just want to be very real. So
yeah, we're just going to be as honest as we can and just really just lay it all out there. So, but before we start with the breastfeeding video, we like to do our peaks and valleys of the last week. Most of them are tied to motherhood because when you're a mom, that's like a 24/7 job. So everything is kind of goes back to that. Yeah. So let's do valleys first, I guess. Valleys. Well, actually, can I just take over and say mine? Over. So I'm excited. That's why I want to take over about this. But I was thinking about it, and I'm sure there was one, but I don't really have a noticeable valley. So instead of searching for one, I'm just going to say I had a valley-less week. Is that okay?
Nice.
It was hot, but I had 2 peaks.
What are your 2 peaks?
So the first one, we went to the mall. We don't have air conditioning in our house. And usually, like, we live close enough to the ocean that we get a nice breeze, so we don't really need AC. But every once in a while, there's those hot days where you're like, oh, I'm sweating. And so I told Kellen, I'm like, hey, can we go to the mall with Ashton, like, walk around? He's like, sure. So we timed it. The mall's only about, like, a 13-minute drive. And so we timed it where it was, like, her nap time when we were getting in the car, roughly. Because she falls asleep in the car. She's getting better, we'll just say. So we get in the car, she falls asleep. But by that point, it's like, you've been asleep for 10 minutes. That's not a nap. That's like, it just doesn't, that's not a nap. She doesn't transfer well. Like, when she's awake, she's back awake.
Zachary didn't either.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, what do we do? Should we sit in the car for like 10 more minutes? So at least like it's a 20-minute nap, which is, she takes 20-minute naps sometimes. But she transferred. What? This is amazing. She transferred to the stroller. I had this portable sound machine.
Do you still have, like, the carrier? Are you transferring?
No.
Did she, like, transfer?
I physically took her human body out and laid it in the flat stroller. Had the sound machine on.
I never got that.
Yeah, had the sound machine on next to her head so that, well, not next to her head. That sounds like kind of like right here. Not right there, but it was attached to the stroller, at an appropriate volume, appropriate decibels, no damage over here. But we laid her down in I was at the baby carriage. Where am I from? In the stroller. And she kind of like opened her eyes. I'm like, yeah, this isn't gonna work. And we had like the really big muslin swaddles that are light. So I know you're not supposed to like trap the hot air in there with them, but we did kind of like put one over the stroller with a nice size vent at the bottom, but just so that her vision was kind of It's like she couldn't really see the world around her.
Correct.
And so, but she went back to sleep. Within like 5 minutes, we started walking. I'm like, well, we'll just see how it goes. We had a lovely mall day. We walked around. I got her a couple new outfits, which is so exciting. We had lunch as a family. Like
a great mall day.
A great mall day. I was so excited. So anyways, if you can't tell, I was thrilled because we'll get to this topic in the future, but like there's something about being able to feel independent or being able to feel like you can do something other than just sit and be someone's source of food and like clothing and everything else. It was great. It was great. And then the second thing, which was really needed, is Kellen and I, and I'll link it below because actually we're really enjoying it, but we started doing a devotion together, which we've done many in the past, but like, you know, you have a baby and then like, it's just hard. And we've actually been really great, which is nice, but we were feeling like we needed something extra. And so we started this devotion, and you guys, it got like so heavy. I was not expecting it. I'm like, we're going to read a page and we're going to like love each other and pray. It turned into like an hour and a half. I was like weeping, but so much healing came. I was not expecting the things that came up to come up. It was more me than him, but it was like it was really nice because it is like when you become a parent, even if you have a great marriage, it's hard to really connect in that way. But she went to bed and just like knocked out early. We immediately went to do this devotion, and then it was just, I will remember that night forever. So it was great. Really, so those are my 2 peaks. And that's why when I was trying to think of a valley and I couldn't think of one, I'm like, why would I search for something negative? That's true. Let's just go with the highs.
If it's not top of mind.
Exactly. And trust me, most weeks there's something top of mind. But this week there wasn't, so I'm like, let's just let it go. Let's just live in that nice, with
Sometimes
everything.
there aren't.
Yeah. Well, you shared a couple weeks ago. You're like, I'm having a good week. This is awesome.
It was like me, like, I can't clean up, but
that's so normal. Me. But anyways, okay. So thank you for letting me get that out and for being excited with me.
I'm very excited for you.
It was really exciting.
We had a couple of those like mall days or family days where I'm like, this is ideal. This doesn't happen all the time. I'm going to appreciate this in the moment.
Oh, I love it so much.
I think it wasn't so much of like a valley where it was hard for me emotionally. Yeah. But it wasn't like, this sucks. I went to, Ian just said it was the timing, which I understand. I rarely ever leave as it is, or if I do leave, like it's with Ian. Yeah. But I left to go celebrate my friends. I left for a party the other night, and I said bye, but it was at dinner time. So I made dinner, sat Zachariah in the high chair. Yeah. And I said bye, and his like bottom lip just starts to go over. And I was like, I don't have to go. I don't have to go.
Is this something newer that he's doing where he's like, oh, you're leaving, I'm sad? Or has he always kind of been like upset when you leave?
No, he used to not care. Okay. Or if he did, he didn't really show it. Like he might miss us. From what I've heard, I've never like had to experience it like that. Yeah. But this was the first time I saw it and could hear him crying. Oh, honey. And it was very sad.
How did you go?
I did. How? But then I also heard.
Not how, like how could you leave your child? I'm just wondering like how were you able to get the strength to leave? Because I haven't gotten to that point yet. Like she's 6 months old, and so I haven't left her much at all. Yeah. But like, did you feel guilt when you left?
I did, 100%.
Oh, and did it last the whole night until you got home? Or were you like, was it initial and then you're like, it's okay, he's with Ian, he's going to be fine?
I knew he would be fine, but then I think I texted Ian to check up just to say like, how'd it go? Like, how was bedtime? Yeah. And then he said he was fine. And then they went to read a book. And I guess he went looking for me.
Oh, do you guys usually do that as a family, like read a book together? Or did he just in that moment, like for some reason he wanted to go
We usually read a book together or two books together before bed.
So he was like, wait, we're missing one of the people.
Yeah. And so that was like, I'm just like listening to like 90s music. Like, But other than that, like it was a valleyless week. It was just like me, like, I don't have to go. But yeah, I do want to see my friends, but I don't really have to see them because you're my best friend. Yeah. As far as like a peak, I bought him I didn't even buy it. If you guys are not on Facebook Marketplace or any of the buy nothing groups in your city, you need to join. Zachariah loves the vacuum, is obsessed with a vacuum. And I was just scrolling Facebook and there was a buy nothing post where you literally pay, you don't pay anyone.
They're just people, getting rid of
things,
like,
I have this. Like, does anyone want this? And so someone was getting rid of a toy vacuum, like a learning vacuum too.
Is it the one that pops, pop, pop, pop?
No, we have one of those.
Oh, okay.
Which he was never really into.
Oh, interesting.
But this one, like, it has like little like dust things, dust discs. I can't say that.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah,
you posted a video.
Yes. And so I like drove down the street to pick it up, brought it home, and he was so excited.
Did he love it? Oh my gosh.
He doesn't love it in the way that I thought he would.
What does he do?
He loves to watch me pretend vacuum.
He's like, I don't want to do this, but what?
Like, if I'm gonna vacuum, I want it to be the real one. So I was like, I don't want to play with your toy, but I will because it makes you happy. He likes to watch me.
It is incredible what we do for our children's happiness. I never really you can't really understand fully until you have a child, but the voices, the songs, the stupidity that I do so that that little girl will laugh, worth it. I'll do it in front of, and the thing is, like, I used to be a very shy person. I do not care. I will be in the middle of the mall, the middle of a store, making up stupid random songs and doing voices because I'm like, I don't care about any of you. I care about you. And I have my audience of one is pleased with me, and that's all that matters. It's hilarious.
But anyway, that was my
that's great though.
Now I have 2 vacuums.
That's hilarious though that he's like, you do it.
Yes.
Mom, here. Does he bring it to you like, here, go do it? Or
yeah, or he'll say he says no, but it's kind of cute. Like, he'll say if I wouldn't say it's like so much defiant as it's just if he doesn't want to do something, he'll just say no.
Like, yeah, he's just like, no.
But it's not like no, it's just straight up no.
Don't you feel like we could learn a lot from children in that regard? Like, yes, there's manners and stuff that they need to learn. I get it. But how nice would it be if, like, the same as a child's like, no. If someone asks you something, you could just be like, no.
With no, like, no negativity behind it. Just
no
like,
emotions attached. No, like, it's just, and it's not being rude. It's just simply like, you are asking me if I want to do something, and I am simply telling you, I don't want to do that. I wish I could be like that. Well, maybe one day. We can learn stuff from our children. But anyways, all right, should we jump in? Are we ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we should open it with a question, because I'm curious for you, because I know for me it was not what I expected. Did you have in your mind any expectations, and maybe not even like really set in stone ones, but was there like a general idea of what you thought the experience would be like, or what you were prepared for? Or did you just kind of go in like, yeah, we'll just figure it out?
I think I just went in. I researched a lot about pregnancy and motherhood, or not necessarily motherhood, but aspects of like
she also has the gift of like researching like that. It is a gift because I'm not that person. So she, like, when I had questions my whole pregnancy and after I had Ashton, I would ask her because she's already sifted through, I think conservatively, thousands of pieces of information and thousands of hours of it. So she's not just saying, oh, I looked at an article, or no. Like, she does like hardcore research and studies. So
couldn't do anything in pregnancy other than sit on my butt and scroll or watch TV. So that's what I did for 9 months, was sit and research. I don't know that I really, this is the thing. I don't feel like what we're doing and what we're going to dive into, I don't feel like these conversations were out there. So all I knew about breastfeeding was that you have colostrum, you might leak before the baby comes. Yeah. You feed the baby, nipple in the mouth, and a couple days later your milk comes in, and that's all that I knew. Yeah. You feed them every couple of hours. Yeah. That's legitimately all that I knew. So I didn't really have any expectations or even like, oh, this is going to happen. All I ever heard about breastfeeding was it's hard or it can be hard. And I'm like, what's hard about?
Okay, so like not really specific ways. Like this is what's hard. It was just like, it's just hard. All of it kind of thing.
Or it can be hard, but it's worth it. That's all I ever heard was it's hard, it's tough, but it's worth it. And I'm like, what's hard about it? Like, you're the only one feeding. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's all that I knew going into it. And I feel like that's still all that's out there right now. Yeah. How about you?
I will say this, like, I was kind of, I wouldn't say like obsessed in an unhealthy way, but I was so excited to breastfeed. Like, that was something I wanted to do. I did not care. Because the other thing that I maybe had heard was people are like, oh, it ruins your boobs. It ruins your body. It ruins, things like that. And I was like, do not care. By the time I am able to have a child, like, it is now about their body, not about my body. Yeah. Like, that was just my mindset. Now, I'm not saying that I don't want to, like, put myself together or look good or feel good, but I was far less concerned with, like, the vanity aspect, which is, I had people in my life more concerned with that. So I was like, oh, well, I'm not worried about that, so this will be easy. And I feel like for me...
Newsflash, before you go on, breastfeeding doesn't ruin your boobs. Pregnancy does. If your boobs get ruined, let's just say, if you care about that, they change. But it's not like breastfeeding is going to be the reason why. Pregnancy and your boobs changing for 9 months on end,
they just
will be the reason why.
And things happen. But it is true. It's totally true. Because they're also, which since, it was one of my girlfriends since having Ashton was like, oh, she chose not to breastfeed because she has breast implants and she thinks she has breast implant illness. And so she just didn't do it altogether. But not breastfeeding didn't change them at all. Does that make sense? Yeah. Like, they did their thing, and I don't think that continuing to breastfeed would have changed them anymore. No. And I don't think mine didn't change anymore. That's what I'm trying to say. But basically, I think that my understanding of breastfeeding going into it was either you can or you can't.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I had no knowledge of, like, supply issues or, tongue ties or any of the other things that kind of came up after the fact when I was searching for some information. Yeah. But initially it was like, I knew about colostrum and I knew that your milk came in. I didn't know time frame. Like, I really don't feel prepared. I didn't feel prepared once I, like, had her, because I'm like, oh shoot, is anything coming out? Because she latched right away and was sucking away, and I was like, this is amazing. I was like so pumped on it, but I didn't know, like, how long does the milk take to come in? Is colostrum the bright orange stuff? I don't think that's milk. Like, there's so many colors coming out of my nipples. Like, there was a lot going on that I was like, I'm not prepared. But my arching theme that I was like, oh, this is breastfeeding is either you can and you just do it as long as you want, or you can't. Like, your milk, not you can't, like, basically you can't as in your milk doesn't come in and, like, you can't because there's nothing there.
Yeah.
And so that was, like, my thing. And it was not the case for me. I was like, I landed in the middle. I'm like, what is this? I've never cried more, maybe in my life, than I did over breastfeeding. True story.
You know what? Same.
And we lost a child last year, and I still don't know if I cried as, like, just, I'm being 100% real right now. I still don't know if I cried over anything as hard as that, and I don't know if it's hormones or I don't know. I mean, that was devastating. I don't know why this was so much more. There's just something to it.
I will say, let me go through my journey real quick.
Yeah.
Or as quick as I can. So overall, my goal was to breastfeed Zachariah for a year. That was just my goal going into it. I thought, like, as long as I keep putting him here, it'll happen. I just wanted to make it to a year because I heard, like, oh, like, my goal is 3 months. My goal was 6 months. And I'm like, my goal is a year. Like,
which
year,
is amazing.
And I will feel great. So hospital, he latched right away. I just remember it just being such a blur. He was placed on my chest, and then pretty much immediately I could see him, like, searching, and I was like, am I supposed to feed him? Like, nobody's really telling me what to do. I don't know. And so I remember asking my doctor, I'm like, I think he wants to nurse. Like, should I? And she's like, yeah, go ahead. And then, like, latched right away like a champ. Everything was great. I feel like motherhood didn't click in for me until probably, like, the second time he nursed. I feel like it was all, like, here and everything was a blur. And then as soon as he started nursing, I was kind of like, okay, I feel like a mom. That was, like, the moment, just because I think it kind of brought me down out of the blur. And I was like, wow, like, this is crazy. Like, I have a baby, he's breastfeeding, and now I feel like a mom. I didn't feel like a mom when I was pregnant. I just felt like I had a belly and the baby moving in there. I didn't necessarily feel like a mom through labor. I feel like in those first few moments of him breastfeeding and in the hospital, that's when I was like, wow, like
there is something so powerful when they latch, like that bond that people talk about. Even if you don't continue to breastfeed, I highly recommend at least trying in the hospital just for that latching, because there is something that happens in those first few times that you're like, whoa. Yeah. Like it just, it totally heightens everything. I don't know.
It's hard to explain.
It's hard. It's so hard.
Until you've done it. People are like, oh, create such a bond. And I didn't understand that until I was like, okay, every time he latched, that's the most I felt like a mom.
Well, you're like reconnected. Yes. Like you carried him, like you carry your baby. So you're connected in that way, but they're still a stranger. Let's be honest. You don't know them. You don't know what they look like, their person. You don't know anything about them, but you are connected and there's nothing that can break that bond. But now they're here. And I do think that every time they latch, you're connected in like a similar physical way again. It's so hard to explain.
It really is. But he latched right away. We had no issues. He ate very quickly. He has never in his life taken more than 10 minutes to eat. He was never one of those. And I know, like, I think that's what I expected. I also expected to nurse for a minimum of 45 minutes just because I had friends that like would go into another room when they were newborns to nurse. And I didn't understand it. I'm like, why are they gone for so long? And then in the hospital, they tried to get me to nurse for that long. And I'm just like, he's passed out. Like, what do you want me to do with a 2-day-old that's like, I can only like shove my nipple in his mouth.
I can only introduce it so many times, but
he's out. So I don't know what you guys want. And I would like, they're like, how long did he feed for? I'm like, 15 minutes or like each. And I'm like,
is that okay?
So that was that.
Can I ask a question? Did he lose weight in the hospital? Like, I know that babies always lose weight. Did he lose weight? And like, do you remember, I don't need like numbers or specifics, but did he lose weight? And was it anything ever that they were concerned about? Or
I think if they lose more than 10%, then they have to introduce introduce formula.
That's what happened with us.
He didn't do that. He'd lost some weight, but not like...
But he was clearly like, basically it's like, oh, he only nursed for 15 minutes, but then they would like weigh him and check on him and be like, but he's fine. So clearly he got his feeding in that 15 minutes.
And you've seen him. Clearly he had no issue. He exploded. I had some issues later on in my pregnancy. So I was induced and basically their whole point was he's better on the outside eating breast milk, whatever, than he is on the inside with your placenta dying.
Yes.
For lack of a better word. Yeah. So he was tiny. He was in the 6th percentile. I think 2-3 weeks later, he exploded and was in like the 85th. And from then on was just a chunk.
He thrived outside of the womb.
My feeding sessions had nothing to do with him weight-wise. So latched right away, no issues. I think it was the next day that it started to be painful. And I feel like all I ever saw online was that it's not supposed to be painful. But everyone I spoke to post that said, oh no, it definitely hurts. Breastfeeding to me in the early weeks felt like someone had taken a razor to my nipples, squeezed lemon and salt into them, and then I had someone chomping on them. That's what it felt like for me. It got better. It was only for like 10, 15, maybe 30 seconds. But I just remember being in the hospital and being like, is it supposed to hurt like this? It just hurt. It hurt a lot. And then I remember the lactation consultant came in and which is also the weirdest thing. Not the weirdest thing, but it's just like once you have a baby, there are just so many people that have access to your body and do things to your body that I wasn't expecting. So she came in and she raised
your throat open. Let me grab your boob.
Like squeezing. She's like, okay, great. You're like, that's what it's supposed to look like. That's what your colostrum is supposed to look like. Your milk will come in a couple of days. She's like, does it hurt? And I'm like, yeah, it kind of does. But I think it's because he had a small mouth since he was so small.
Yeah. So he wasn't like getting, this is like all very, open speech, but his mouth, because I have heard like it's not the nipple, it's your areola. Like it's
you gotta
around
put as much in as you can. Like,
so it makes sense if your baby is a preemie or has a smaller mouth, then it would be painful.
He was basically a preemie.
Yeah.
So the lactation consultant came in. She gave me like, I think they're called like nipple savers or something, but it's like I wish I had it.
Is it a shield kind of that goes?
It's like a shield, but it like is a milk saver. That's what it is. But you put it like, it's got like a little thing here that you put over, but then it's like a cup that goes over that. So it catches anything that leaks, but it also like.
And milk is valuable, guys.
Yes.
It is gold.
The phrase "don't cry over spilled milk" it applies to breast milk. I don't think it applies to just regular like cow's milk.
Yeah.
But it it created like a barrier between my bra and my nipple and all of this, so like they could breathe and they weren't touching anything.
Got it. Well, that's kind of nice.
How was your hospital experience?
Well, so here's the thing. It was, like you said in the beginning, it was so, like, euphoric. That's the word I could say, because I ended up having an emergency C-section, which was totally fine. Routine. I think I was but I was under anesthesia a little longer due to random complications. But that being said, as soon as they put her on my chest, I was like, oh my gosh, like, right? You're like, this is my child.
Yeah.
And then by the time, which was just like 2 doors down, by the time I wheeled into like the post-op room waiting to go up to recovery, she was like looking for my nipple. And I was like, this is so great. Because, I was like, I don't know. Again, I don't know.
Yeah.
Do I introduce her? Like, it's biological. God created us this way. Is she just going to be looking? Like, I don't know. But she was. And so I did. And I was like, oh, this is the coolest thing ever. And so then I didn't know if anything was coming out because I didn't know how to squeeze right. And I don't think initially there is, but they're just like or at least for me, there
is colostrum, but I don't think there's a letdown.
Yeah.
There's no letdown because there's no milk.
Yes. So I was like, well, I don't really know what's happening, but she's doing it. And hopefully this is like, and I had her and it was great, but as soon as she latched and within those few minutes, then some other things happened. Where we got some like test results that were positive, even though we weren't positive, but that affected the way that the nurses interacted with me the whole time. Like I didn't have help. I didn't have, even when I had questions and would call them, and this is not the nurse's fault. I don't want it to be looked down on any of it's just, this is the world we are living in currently, or we were living in. So I feel like I was really tense in my body. So it was so nice when I was like in just so much bliss. It was euphoric until a series of events happened that I don't feel like, I felt kind of like it was a sink or swim, but I didn't know how to swim. So I was like flailing around. The lactation, consultant for the hospital came in and I was all about it because I hadn't seen anyone. Like no one had come in, like Ashton didn't get a bath. Someone came in and I said, hey, could we cause she still had like crusties all over her, and I was like, my poor baby. And so they did kind of just like a little like wiped her down, but she didn't have a bath until we went home, and just little things that I didn't know about and I didn't know would affect me, but then they did. Yeah. But yeah, she was losing so much weight though. Okay. And I think, so my milk I felt letdowns after I left the hospital, but in the hospital, I never felt that letdown.
I never felt a letdown in the hospital
either. And every time, and she lost more than 10% of her body weight within like a very quick amount of time. She nursed a long time, probably because she couldn't get what she needed. Yeah. Looking back, and that was one of the things that was the most emotional, is I was like, when she was losing so much weight, you want your baby should be losing weight, but also gaining, right? Yeah. Like it's supposed to be balancing out.
By the time they leave, they should be on the up.
And she was just a steady decline. And that was hard for me. Yeah. But I'm also like, I wasn't fully in that world because I'm also like, ouch, why is my incision bleeding? Like I have a lot of previous complications. So there's just so much in my mind that I wasn't entirely on that, which I wish I would have been, or like made more space for just being in that moment.
I will say, breastfeeding it's very consuming, but same. I was in so much pain that in the moment that I would be in the hospital, I had a 2nd degree tear and I was just so out of it. And I just remember like, I just want to be able to pee 3 times and not have giant blood clots and have to deal with this. I just feel like there are a lot of things as a first time mom that you just don't expect. So not to minimize what you went through, but there's just a lot. And I feel like the lactation consultant was a completely different, for lack of a better word, vibe than the nurses. The nurses for me were great, but it was more of just like, did he nurse? How long did he nurse for? they didn't really help.
And see, I had a woman who was phenomenal, like the opposite of nurses, because the nurses were like not really as present.
My
lactation was so great.
She was great. Yeah. Lactation consultants are great. It was just the nurses that were very like business, and they were great. My nurses were great. It was just like, how long did you nurse for? Blah blah blah. And I'm like, it hurts. And they were just like, well, here's some nipple butter. And so it was just like, but this hurts. Like, how long? I don't know.
It's hard.
I think since that's not their specialty, they can only say the information that's on like the wall.
It's really one thing that I did not expect, just postpartum as a whole, that I wish, and going into the next delivery and pregnancy, I feel like I didn't quite understand the hormones involved, because you can have a knowledge of something and you can be even like prepared for it. I didn't realize how like just emotional the whole thing would be. But it didn't feel like, I mean, I felt justified in my emotions. It's not like, oh, this is for nothing. But they were extremes where I'm like, wow, normal me could handle this better. But I don't feel in control of my body. And that was hard. So then they introduced formula because she wasn't, and I was like, okay, but in my mind I was like, oh, okay, this is fine, supplement until my milk really comes in. Like, this is fine. But I wasn't happy about it. Like, I also tend to look at the ingredients at a lot of things. And I'm like, here's this perfectly made, beautiful baby with a completely delicate, untouched system. And now I'm not doing it. My body's not doing enough. And I have to introduce something, foreign. I wasn't expecting to feel like that. Do you know how many babies like get formula right off the bat, or if they're, go up for adoption or anything like that, they're fine. But in my head, I was like, oh my gosh, but I felt all of the pressure on myself. I was like, why can I not do what I need to do so that she's fed? But it's still like they've introduced formula, and I was like, I don't want to do this.
But I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Not at all. But in the moment, and this is why I think people don't necessarily talk about it, where it's like women either are like pro breastfeeding of like, ew, not everyone, but like you shouldn't do formula because it's quote bad for your baby. Or there's people on the other end that are like, it's just as fine. Like, fed baby is a happy baby. And I get it, but I do think that there's like split the difference where you shouldn't have an attitude on either end, but it's okay to be upset when your expectations aren't met.
Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with, I feel like that's a big thing right now, is that it's okay if you feel a certain way about formula. That's totally fine. You don't have to bash someone because they choose to give formula, or they have to. But if you don't want that, like, it's okay.
It's okay if you don't want it, and it's okay if you do want it. I just think that it's like and that's what I was more trying to say, is like you have these two groups that if someone feels the opposite way, they're a bad mom. Like, I want to give my child formula. I don't want to breastfeed. And you don't even know the reasons. And this group over here that's like, do you know how beneficial breast milk is? Do you know, like, why would you deprive your child? It's like, whoa. Time out. Let's take a step back.
Yeah.
Or people on the other end who, there's just so much to it. But also, like, every mother is different.
Yeah.
And every child. Like, I had a woman reach out to me the other day regarding breastfeeding, 5 children. And not only was each experience different for her, depending on her age, what was going on in her life, all of those things. But also each child is different.
Yeah.
One of her children was born with a cleft lip. Like, that's going to affect things, And they figured out a way to but it's like, just because your experience or whatever you're doing in this moment is one way, doesn't mean the next one will be identical. Yeah. Likely it will not be identical.
Yeah.
But it is like, I just find people a little bit arrogant about it, or a little shaming on both ends, shaming if it's different than what their convictions are. But like, I just feel like God will make happen what's supposed to happen with each child. But yeah, it's just, there's so much. It's hard.
It is. So we got home. Zachariah nursed for the rest of his nursing journey. He nursed like a champ. I will say, there came a moment when I remember my milk came in when we were at home. He was asleep on my chest, and I remember being in bed, and I woke up because he woke up and I couldn't breathe. Oh. And I was just like in a state of panic because my milk came in, and it was just, Zachariah was on my chest, so there was weight there. And then like all of a sudden I felt like I had a 10-pound weight. Yeah. And I remember telling Ian, like, you got to get him off. You got to get him off. I can't breathe. And it was like a full on like panic attack. And it was in that moment. Before, breastfeeding was great. Even though it was a little painful, it was great every time I wanted to do it. And then when my milk came in I would say for at least 3 weeks, I hated every minute of it. I did not want to do it. I powered through, but I did not want to do it and he needed to eat a lot. And I just remember there being one night he woke up and was crying because he was hungry, because that's what babies do. They cry when they're hungry. And Ian looked at me, and because I was looking at Zachariah, and he's like, I think he's hungry. And I just remember looking at him and just being like, I know. He's like, I think he wants to eat. And I just said, I know. And I was just trying to muster up the courage and just get out of the headspace of, I don't want to do this, even though I know he needs to. I was just so...
Did you not want to do it because of all the things, or was it like specifically like because your hormones are really are playing games with you for sure? You're exhausted. Yeah. It hurts. Like, is it everything in your physical being that's just kind of like, or do you think that there's any part of it that's like psychological, especially if you like, you're going from being a perfectly independent person, and then all of a sudden it's like you don't have a choice. Mm-hmm. Like you no longer own your body in a way.
It's all of it. And
things. It's a decision that you are making, because like you could give him a bottle, or you could, but you are choosing to do this. But is it in those like the hard moments like that? Like, is it just hard because of all the things?
It's hard because of all the things. I think the pain on top of it, even though it was short-lived, it would take like 30 seconds. I just had to breathe through it. But those 30 seconds were so painful. And I think also knowing that he was going to be hungry sooner rather than later. He was not on like a eat every 2 hours type of schedule. It was just, I was just trying so hard to be like, I know I need to do this. I just got to do it, but I can't right now. I can't do it. And I tried to pump, and anytime I would pump, he would wake up. And so I was just like, this doesn't make sense. Like, I might as well, I'm doing twice the work for nothing, for what it felt like for me. But I just remember in that moment being like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do it anymore. And I definitely had resentment toward my husband because he didn't have nipples or working nipples. Yeah. And not that it wasn't like an all the time thing. It was just, I would be the one waking up. I had to go through this. Yeah. I had to experience this pain while also healing. And it was just like, I could give formula. We had a couple of sample cans, but I didn't want to. Yeah. So my desire to not want to.
Were you kind of like, if I cross this line, there's not really going back? In a way, like, I've made a decision in a sense, because like, that is easier. Like, I'm just going to be honest, because I had to do both. That I see the appeal of it in the middle of the night when you're exhausted, because it is easier. It is. There's no physical pain for you. Nope. They usually, depending if you're, and now again, some babies are like, I only want one nipple, I don't want the other. But like, at least the thought of it is, oh my gosh, if I can just put a bottle in your mouth, there's nothing physically required of me other than my hand holding this in your, and holding you. Yeah. But
if you breastfeed, like, you're kind of held hostage for a while.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you can't multitask when you're breastfeeding.
No. You're held hostage. You can't go anywhere. I remember in those first 3 weeks, I just wanted to go to the gas station. Ian's like, let's just go get out for a minute. I came home and Zachariah was crying. Ian was like, trying to defrost like one bag of breast milk that I had. And I'm just like, I was gone for not even 30 minutes. Like, I can't even leave the house for 30 minutes. Yeah. So there's definitely like that pressure and that anger there, to where you're like, if you exclusively breastfeed, you have to be available around the clock. I had to be home. I couldn't just leave, or you have to have some sort of pumped milk, or if you have formula, then you have formula. But I was like in a mindset of like, no, I am not giving formula. It is evil. It is not evil. It is not evil. We gave a couple of bottles later on down the line, but like going forward.
But it's okay, and it's real to talk about, this is how I viewed this. Yeah. In that time. I feel like when you're out of it, there's something about that initial postpartum period that the lens that you see everything through is different. It's not your normal common sense or your normal reasoning is not this. Well, for me anyway, it's not the same. It wasn't the same. Everything was heightened. I had very strong feelings and views on things. Like, and again, it wasn't, I felt like I was like the thing is, it wasn't even that I was letting myself down. The biggest thing that was the most devastating is I was like, I am letting her down. Yeah. And she has no choice. And the amount of tears I cried. And then, man, when those lies and those thoughts came in that are like, if this was like the olden times, like your baby would be dead because you can't even feed your child. Like, you're not giving her and then your imagination goes wild. And so then I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I go from that one thought to her crying because she can't get enough milk, to her wasting away. Like, I mean, I don't know about you, I had a very vivid, dark imagination in like the month to 2 months postpartum. And I don't know, it was never violent towards my child that I was doing it, because I've had other moms share, like, I literally had this like thought of like throwing my child out the window. Like, who does that? And it's like, and I don't think that's talked about enough. I never got to that point. I didn't have that, but I would have horrific thoughts of my child, like something bad happening to her. And it was so, I mean, it was tormenting is what it was. But I remember just like waking up in the middle of the night, like just praying and willing my milk to like come in strong and more. And I would try to nurse her, and she would nurse for like 10, 15 minutes and then be crying because that was all that was there. And she was still hungry. And initially I was like, oh, I don't want to open a bottle of formula, not because of the formula, but I want my body to do what I want it to do, dang it. And so without it, I'd have to give her formula. So I'd give her formula. She'd go back to sleep. And then, but usually she would nurse. I would really try to nurse her for as long as I could, which usually was like 30 to 40 minutes. Like, please suck every drop, like stimulate the milk flow, like keep coming. And then I would give her a bottle of formula of whatever she wanted to eat after. And then I would immediately go and try to pump because I was trying to like get it going. Like I tried all the things, I guess I should say, like for my supply. The hard thing is, due to a certain thing that was going on in the world, you couldn't see people in person. Yeah. So I had consultations with multiple lactation consultants, but they were either via Zoom or they were on the phone or email. And for me, I need you to be in the room with me. I need you to show me exactly where I'm putting my hand. I need you to show me. But like, I would get in the shower before, like I'd anticipate. I'm like, okay, hot water, relax. And then as soon as I felt it, I was like, shoot, I'd have like the hawkers on, and I'm like, baby, come here, like, get on here. And so I was trying everything in my power, but man, the amount of tears I had, because it was just that guilt and that, I mean, I don't even know the word for it, but it was tormenting to think like, I am not able to do what I need to for my baby. Instead of focusing on the fact that how freaking blessed are we that we live in a day and age when it's okay if you can't, if your supply isn't up. We have formula, we have options, we have other things. And I, right when she got to be 4 months, she like really wanted food, like real food. And I didn't know that would come so soon. So that helped me as well, because then it was like, oh, now we're nursing more as like fun bonding time as opposed to I'm your source of nutrition. Yeah. But getting over that, I was not her source of nutrition and sustenance was like, that was devastating for me. But my mom reminded me, she goes, Britt, she's like, you're devastated by it. She's not. Exactly. Like, she doesn't know. Yeah. And once I really accepted that, I was like, okay, it's okay. Like, I'm going to be fine. But I do think the one thing is you really should guard that, because it is so, for most people, emotionally charged. Like, maybe don't talk to just anyone about your breastfeeding journey, because it is really close to like the chest. And I think that too many people are like, what's your journey? Like the amount of messages I got, and I'm like, I'm not ready to share this yet. Like, this is too much, like too many opinions. And people were either looking for like validation and that they weren't alone, or they were looking for, I don't know what they were looking for, but it was, but I think that you should probably maybe not talk to just anyone.
Yeah. Because I don't want to scare anyone and say like, I didn't want to do this for 3 weeks. Like, I hated it. But you know what? On the other side, I was so happy when week 4 came around and I was like, I actually love this. Like,
yeah,
there is an undeniable bond when you breastfeed your child.
Yeah.
And I began to love it. I loved that if he would cry, I was like, I got it. I got it right here. Like, come here. No one else can do this for you.
Yeah.
And I love that. On the flip side, it would have been nice to, like, sleep longer. Like, if Ian could have taken a bottle to him in the middle of the night, I could be like, I'm out for the next, I don't know how long, because he didn't he didn't sleep for very long. He slept okay, but it was just like, I thought about that and I'm like, it would be so nice. It would be so nice to wear what I want.
Yeah.
Like, there are pros and cons to breastfeeding. I think for me, the pros outweigh the cons 10 times over. But every shirt I wore, I'm like, can he have access to this?
Yeah.
And there were times I'm like, I just wanted my body back.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's totally
okay.
fair. Mm-hmm.
I just didn't want to. There were sometimes I just wanted to dress for me. I wanted to not have to be around. I wanted to not be available. Not in like I wanted it to be all about me, but every once in a while, like, it's okay. I feel like to feel like that. Like,
I agree.
I don't want to share my body right now.
Yeah.
And that time came, when he started eating solids around 4.5, 5 months. And I was like, oh, okay, like, I can wear something that I want to wear and I don't have to be available. Then I started using some of the pumped milk that I had. And if I wanted to give him a bottle, like, I could, because I knew, he didn't care where his milk came from. He didn't care if it was hot, room temperature, freezing. He was just like, I'm hungry.
I want it.
Feed me. So I think that's also a thing that's not really talked about, is it's okay to want to feel like yourself. I didn't feel like, I will say, breastfeeding for so long, for me, made me feel like I didn't belong to myself, which was okay most of the time. And then some of the time, I was just like, I don't like this. Mm-hmm. I want to belong to me. I want to dress for me. I just don't want this. I loved the bond, but there were definite moments where I missed myself.
And I think people often, like, they take a moment and then they attach it as like, that's who you are. That's like, they'll take that and they'll run with that one statement, when you're like, no, we're human beings. And we have, well, let's be honest, we have like a selfish nature just given to us. But then also, I think it's natural to be like, we don't, like, this is hard and I don't want to do this. Because, like, in the middle of the night, when I knew, like, I just knew this is going to be such a long process probably. And it would be so easy to switch over to just exclusively formula, because I'm clearly, it's not even working as it should. So I should just throw in the towel. I will say, for me though, if anyone is having like supply issues, there's no shame in supplementing. It's such an easy problem that God could fix. Like, done, there's your supply. And he didn't. That's okay. But like, it's okay to supplement, but also it's okay to do both, And I would recommend, for me, I am so glad, because now she is a little over 6 months. And I think I don't think anything's happening anymore. It was like 2 weeks ago was the last time I breastfed. And I surprisingly was okay. I'm glad that I tried to deal with it before, like, the quote last time came. And the thing too that I was really grateful is she wasn't looking for it. Okay. She really likes real food, like, over anything else, over the boob, over formula. Like, she's a girl after her mom's own heart, and she loves to eat, and she loves food and trying new things. And so I felt better, because in my mind, I think in my head, I had these like horrible recurring things of like, my she's going to want that, and I can't give it to her. And I think as a parent, that's the biggest thing. That's like my biggest fear, is like, my child's going to want something and I can't give it to her within healthy, reason. But I remember in the middle of the night being like, oh my gosh, I slept for 2 hours, or hour 45 minutes. I'm going to be up for another 2 between trying to feed her and empty my boobs and stimulate milk, because they say like skin to skin, right? So I would be like, okay.
You just do all of the things.
You just do all the things. And it's such a commitment and it's such an investment. But I at least feel good that I truly do believe like I did everything in my power for this go around. I do have a gut feeling that the next time will be different, but we'll see. We'll see when we get there. But Yeah.
There are a lot of I did all of the things too, because I remember being on social media and seeing like these deep freezers full of milk and like all of this like organized. And I didn't have anything at the time because he was eating so frequently. And I'm like, what can I do to make him eat longer? Or can I pump in between? And I couldn't, because at that point in time, he did not want to be put down. So I couldn't put him down. Like if Ian was home, then I would try to pump, but I couldn't get very much out before his next feeding. And I just remember being so frustrated, being like, I am not feeding he's not getting enough. That's the reason why he eats so frequently, because he's so hungry. That's why it only takes him 5 minutes. Yeah. And then he started to like explode. And I was like, okay, like he's getting enough. Okay. But there were just, so many things that I'm like, I'm not doing enough. And just because you don't have a giant deep freezer full of milk, or even a shelf full of milk, doesn't mean
or
your
even
baby's,
one bag.
It's okay. I will say for me, I hate pumping. If you're a mom that exclusively pumps or pumps at all, good on you. I cannot do it. Anytime I pumped, I would pump like once a day later on, because I wanted to like build up a stash for when we left, and it was nice to have a stash, or if I left for the day. And I hated it so much that I might do it next time, but if I couldn't breastfeed, like put my baby on the boob, I honestly would switch to formula, because I'm like, mentally, I just can't pump. Yeah. I cannot be an exclusive pumper. It is not me. But I do not have, I don't think I ever really had a bad association with formula. I just didn't want to do it. And that's okay. Like, it's okay if you don't want to give your baby formula.
It's clear that there are, it's clear that that's, unless there's something else, but just generally speaking, that is the way God designed it. And that is like superhuman food for your baby. Like, there are antibodies you can give. There are just so many things that your body... The benefit is incredible. Your body adapts if you get sick, if they get sick. Like, it adapts to what they need. And that's why I think I was so let down, is because I had a knowledge of, like, this is the way it's supposed to be, like, in a perfect world. Yeah. But guess what? We don't all live in a perfect world. And it doesn't happen that way all the time. But one thing before we started this video that you were saying is how hard it is now. And I don't think this is just with breastfeeding, but this is definitely a huge one. But it's challenging to be proud that you were able to breastfeed, because it almost like, quote, shames other people who weren't able to, or whatever that is.
Like, I don't feel like I can share that. I breastfed for a year. I exclusively breastfed for a year with some bottles here and there. But I was the reason he was alive and kept alive for 6 months. And I am proud of that. I am so proud.
You should be proud of that. But it is
sad. But you can't share that now, is what I feel like, because then there are the moms that gave formula or had to pump and say, like, well, my baby thrived on this, and that's fine too. And it's like, yes, I'm not negating that, but I am proud that I was able to do this.
Do you think that people really, like moms really kind of look at breastfeeding as a community thing, almost as an independent thing? Because what it should be is we should be able to share our own journey with our body and our child, without bringing anyone else up and no one else feeling a certain kind of way. I feel like that says way more about the other person than it does about you.
Exactly. And I don't feel like I should have to walk on eggshells because I am proud of something that I was able to do. Yeah. It was a goal of mine, and I achieved that goal, and I was just like, yes. But then if I go to share it, it's like I feel like there are just so many other moms or other people that are like, well, this and that. And I'm just like, I understand that. Yeah. I'm not trying to say, like, because you made this decision to feed your baby this way, you're less than me.
The thing is, you're not even thinking about anyone else. That's the point. And people, I think, are taking it on as like, oh, you should be thinking about me and thinking about how this could trigger me. But I don't think I'm better than you because I breastfed for a year. But you can be proud that you breastfed. I wished I could have. Like, I am now sitting here done, and I'm bummed. It makes me sad sometimes. But at the same time, I have to let it go. I also don't want people to not celebrate because of my pain. I feel like if you, and this is just personal, and this might not be popular opinion because it's a little challenging, but if you are triggered, that is up to you to deal with that trigger. Yeah. That is not anyone else's responsibility. I still have triggers. I still, for whatever reason, real talk, our story, we lost our first daughter when I was 7 months pregnant, and it was devastating. in that, it is really hard for me still and triggering still to see women pregnant with their first and all the excitement that comes that first time, because I went through all of that and I didn't get the outcome that I wanted. That being said, I am not standing up here being like, hey, you should really be more sensitive to women like me who have lost babies and not post that you are pregnant and not post. Our journeys are completely independent of each other. Like God has a specific time for that baby that is in your belly, or, you know, there was a specific purpose that will happen, or that you know, will continue to be carried out with what happened with us. And I don't know all the whys, but I just think it's so frustrating when people who are triggered are demanding that you avoid their landmines. Because then at some point, you can't take a step in any direction because you're going to blow up someone. Yeah. And that's not on you. That should be on us. Like if we have a trigger, like, I also think that if you switch your perspective, like, or I don't know how to even say it, you should be able to celebrate someone else, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And honestly, making yourself celebrate someone else brings a lot of healing to you, because it makes that thing that has been controlling you a lot smaller. I agree. Does that make sense? Yes. That was a tangent. I don't know if it was even made sense, but
how you shared you were okay with Ashton's last breastfeeding session. So my goal was to make it to a year. Legitimately, the day after Zachariah turned a year, he was done. And I was not okay. Because my goal,
he's like, Mom, I heard your goal. I'm done.
My goal was to make it to a year, but that was my choice. I thought it was going to be my choice to have this last session. And it was just, I remember trying to feed him in the morning because I nursed him every morning. And I think every night I would wake up, or he would wake up in the morning, I would nurse him, go back to bed, and then his last feeding would be at night before bed. Yeah. So we were just at 2 sessions, early in the morning, late at night, so I had my body. And he woke up the day after his birthday, his first birthday, and legitimately refused my nipples. And I was devastated, I'd say probably for 2 days. Because I was like, this is my choice. I understand you're a grown boy, but I was in and out of bed for a day and a half, just so sad, bawling, because I was just so sad. I'm still sad.
Because it was just it was end of a chapter, kind of.
It was, and I think because it wasn't my choice, even though I did hit my goal, I was just so devastated because it didn't end the way I thought it would. I thought
Did you feel like something was taken away from you?
I did. It was I no longer, I feel like any breastfeeding mom feels like you're the main source. You are the source. And so for me, it was you don't need me.
Yeah.
He does need me. And I do serve a purpose. But in that moment, I was just I no longer serve a purpose to you. And it was such a lie, but I was just I could not get out of that, where I was just he doesn't need me. I am not worthy to feed you. You don't need me. And that was really hard to deal with for I'd say 2 days. And then I got over it and I was like, you know what, you hit your goal, but I thought it was going to be on me. Yeah. But this kid heard me somehow. He's like, oh, a year?
Well, I think that you are raising a wonderfully independent son who's it'd just be challenging. That would be really hard. And then here I am crying I didn't even make it to 6 months. But no, I feel like I've made peace with that, and that it might have devastated me, but she is not going to remember any of this. It's on me.
Now he laughs at my nipples. He sees them and he's like, haha. And I'm like, you weren't laughing those first few months, sir.
This is the reason you're alive. No, I'm just kidding. But
now he straight up laughs and trolls me, and I'm just like, what happened? You needed me and now you don't, and you think it's funny? You think it's funny that you used to do this?
Oh, man.
Do you think next time, regardless of your journey, you are way more mentally prepared?
100%. And I have this gut feeling that obviously we'll be in a different season of life. We'll be maybe not, isolated away from friends and family. Hopefully we'll be close to everyone. I don't think that isolated in a room, essentially quarantined in a room, like where no one's allowed to come in. I feel like it will be different in all the ways. Plus now I have the knowledge that I have this time. Is there anything, because I have like a couple things, is there anything that you would do differently next time?
What I would do differently, I think just knowing that there is an end date, if it's as painful as it was the first time, I think knowing that there's like an end and like 3 weeks, 4 weeks when you're not sleeping is a lot.
That's a long time.
It feels like a long time. But when I was on the other side, I was like, oh, that was nothing. That was a blip. So I think going into it next time, I will be less in my feels, if that's a thing.
Like less sweating how long it's taking and more like, okay, this won't be forever.
I will stress less for sure. I'm sure that had something to do with me not having like this giant bank. But I know next time I don't need to have this giant supply. If my next baby needs a bottle and I don't have like pumped milk, like formula might be okay. Or if I choose not to give formula again, like then I just don't need to leave. But next time, hopefully I have the same journey. It might not look like that, but hopefully I will be less emotional.
Yeah. I hope so too. I feel like I will make it more of a special thing because I definitely, you hear like, oh, set up a chair with snacks and water and all this. I didn't do that. I was like, I'll just feed wherever. But the thing is, I think because I don't think I mentally like went there when I went to feed. Does that make sense? Like I wasn't comfortable because we didn't have a comfortable couch or, there were a lot of things that like, I feel like I could have done differently as far as like, I'm going to feed her. I'm going to this spot. It's, I guess, peaceful. Like our environment was not peaceful.
Yeah.
So I think I would try to make it, even if it's one little nook in the room or whatever, I will try to do that. I think I'll ask for more help because I think I felt not bad asking for help, but it was just like, you're so overwhelmed, you don't even ask for help because you're just like, I don't know. So I think I'll try to ask for help more like, hey, can you grab me a water? Or can you bring me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or something like that? And then I think I would find more reasons to like laugh and smile and basically just get out of the like, because there's a lot that your body just went through and is going through. And so I think I would do more of like, I don't remember smiling and laughing a ton in the beginning. And I hate that I think back and I'm like, oh, now I get it. You're tired and stuff. But I think I will make more of a point to like put on a funny video or make yourself smile or laugh just because I know that my body would probably like relax a little bit more with it. But
I think next time, I think next time too, hopefully I will have more. I think I just stuck with the same wardrobe. And I feel like for me, I was just like, I just feel like I just felt like such a cow, like wearing the same things, looking at, but just being not gross, but I just didn't feel great, especially in those first few weeks that I was just like, I hate this. And nothing about what I was doing, where I was made it feel any better. But I think maybe having like, I don't know, cuter nursing bras than just like the 2-pack I got off of Amazon. Just
for sure.
Things to make me feel better about myself when you're just trying to recover and trying to figure out and like leaking everywhere and you just feel like a mess.
Yeah.
So I think that for me, but definitely going into it less. I know breastfeeding in general is emotional. So, and I've spoken to moms that have a second and a third baby and it's still just as difficult. Yeah. But I feel like being more mentally prepared will definitely help. And just knowing like, I gotta make it through these next 4 weeks. Like I can do it. It's short time.
And I think I've officially released all expectations because of like, because it didn't happen the way I wanted it to last time. I feel like going into the next time, it'll be a different experience. I feel like it'll be different, but I think I will definitely... I think I've released it where it's like, okay, if it's even the exact same, it's going to be fine. Yeah. If you get up and you're up for, hours at night, because I think people they're like, oh, you're supplementing, so you get to sleep through the night. And I'm like, no, because I'm still up trying to pump, trying to stimulate. So I still was up, even if I wasn't nursing her, I was trying to do all the things I could. And I don't know, will I do the same thing next time? I have no idea. Yeah. I don't know. But I do feel definitely more mentally prepared for, quote, anything.
Yeah.
I hope. We'll see when we get there. We might have to do like a round 2. Like, how's it going this time? But yeah.
I do have a plug. I have one product to plug.
Plug it.
So because my goal was to make it to a year, I remember being like 6 months in and I remember finding breastfeeding jewelry and I thought it was the coolest thing. I'm like, if I make it to a year, I'm going to treat myself
Is that
to
where they
some
do
breast
something
milk jewelry.
out of breast, like they make it out of breast milk?
They do.
I think I've seen this.
So I have this ring.
Oh, that's so pretty.
That has preserved breast milk in it. It's got like little gold flecks and I actually like...
That's cool.
I thought it was the coolest thing. I had forgotten that I wanted it. And then Zachariah was like a year and 9 months or something like that. And then something popped up on my feed and I was like, oh yeah, I wanted that. So I was still able, I think I can still like express a little bit. He's a little over 2. Wow. But I remember like trying to express breast milk because I didn't have any. I thought I had used all my bags. And so I'm like, they just need an ounce. I can get an ounce. Don't do that. My nipples were so raw. If you haven't breastfed in almost a year, like just don't do that.
Let it be.
But I was able to find my mom found a bag. I remember asking her, I'm like, are you sure there's not one frozen bag in there? And she's like, no. I'm like, can you just check? And she found one. And I'm like, thank God. So I got this made from Preservations Creations. I'll put her info below. And she's a new mom too. I think she has 2. But at the time that I sent my milk in, she was about to deliver. And I love it. I wear it almost every day. I'm so proud of my journey. And I'm so proud that I was able to get this made. Hopefully I can do this with, I don't know, however many other babies we have. Not too many, but.
And on the other side, if you weren't able to, that's okay too.
It is okay.
Your baby does not need your boob to thrive.
No.
My child is thriving and she hasn't had this as her main source really ever since day one. You're going to get through it. It's okay. You can mourn the loss. You can mourn the loss of stopping, like your last breastfeeding session. You can mourn the loss of not being able to do it the way you wanted to. But just know that this is such a short period. Don't allow your mindset to be stuck here. Like, just take a deep breath, accept it, embrace it, and just move on. Because your child's going to thrive, and they're going to be great. And that's the whole point, right? Like, we're okay. We're not going to be breastfeeding forever, or really at all. But you're going to be okay. Your child's going to thrive, and that's what's most important.
However you choose to feed them.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be great. So anyways.
We know this was a very long one, but I feel like it was good. And we got to talk about everything that we thought about, all of the aspects that we went through. And so hopefully this blesses you in a way.
You don't feel alone.
It gave you some information you didn't know. If you didn't know anything about breastfeeding, hopefully we answered questions you had or you didn't know you had.
Yeah.
Because I had questions I didn't know I had until
you heard people talking about it. And then it's like, oh.
Or until I was going through it and I'm like, what is happening? Why is no one talking about this?
Yeah. Well, we love you guys so much. Hope you enjoyed this video. Let us know your journey in the comments below. Why not? All right. We will see you guys next time. Bye.